PodcastCoug Season 7, Episode 10.
You're listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug on Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, PodcastCoug.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. I am James Laurie, the PodcastCoug, and you are listening to the PodcastCoug, where we're all things Cougar football, 30 minutes of Coug talk, and we're talking about our blowout against Stanford, 52-14, and now we're focusing on Arizona State Family Weekend in Pullman on Saturday afternoon. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. James Laurie, and hey, you know what? We have played Stanford, 72 times, and the 72nd time was our best, highest margin victory ever in the series, going way, way back, passing that 40-6. The last time we beat him, the biggest margin was 1958, 40-6. That's a long time ago, right? 2 words on Saturday's game at Stanford in Palo Alto, Nakia Watson, right? Nakia made his presence felt immediately, right? 65-yard run on that set up the first of 7 touchdowns. Nakia, 306 yards rushing. That's right, 306 yards rushing in one game, right? So that first drive, along with a few others early on, featured some creative plays, right? Colin on that, hoping to see that. We've been waiting for that, right? And we just jumped on him ahead, 21 points in the first quarter. We've been waiting for a blowout. Been waiting all season long to score over 50 points, right? Now, this is Stanford. Stanford, of course, is at the bottom, right? They're up there, they're down there with Colorado, so we can't really take this as, a big, huge win, but it's this win was very important, right? I mean, the biggest thing you can hope for after a quick opening strike and to score is the defense to step up and prevent Stanford from scoring, and that's exactly what happened, as Stanford only gained 3 yards on 3 plays. So how many guys were getting some good time on our second scoring drive? Well, Orion Peters caught an 18-yard pass, and Anderson Grover caught a touchdown pass. Who the heck is Anderson Grover? I mean, really? So Brennan Jackson stepped up, and he helps, stop Stanford's second drive, and he forced that second straight 3-and-out, and another huge run by Nakia, and both Nakia and Cam Ward just were celebrating as the route started. The route was on. Here we go, right? Defense looked really good on Saturday. So Stanford, their possessions were like this, right? Fumble, punt, fumble, fumble, fumble. 4 fumbles. And guess what? We recovered every one of them, right? That is amazing. And then you've got Deion Henley, right? And Francisco Mauingo. And Mauingo forced 2 of those 3 fumbles, and Deion recovered 2 of them. So, boy, what a team effort. 4 fumbles. Amazing. And one of those Mauingo punch-outs found its way to safety Jaden Hicks, who ran it in for a score 20, and then it was 28-7 lead, right? So Donovan Ollie had a great catch for another score, and then Smith Wade was the next man up. That he punched the ball out of Elijah Higgins as he ran into the arms of Travion Brown. Another fumble. Right, this time it was Amari Marsh and Deion Henley teaming up to get the ball back. What a day Saturday was. Nakia Watson took the ball 41 yards on one play to close out the first half. Great first half. Second half, Brennan Jackson had a 3rd down sack and killed a Stanford drive. But wait, there's more. There's more. That's steak knives, right? Backup quarterback John Mateer. Oh, boy, what the day was all about. And running back Javinsky Schlenbecker was great as a backup running back, and so was John Mateer. Wasn't that great to see Mateer? Oh, my gosh, made both of them, both Schlenbecker and Schlenbaker, I should say, and Mateer made their college debut. They just blew us away. So, the first time all season we got to see these guys live in action. Mateer, he was, we thought he was going to come in fourth quarter mop-up duty and kill the clock. But how about that first play? A 16-yard run, run around on the left hand, 16 yards, and then a couple plays later, Mateer dropped an absolute dime on Orion Peters for a 27-yard score, one possession, one touchdown, not bad. Mateer, quick release, dual threat quarterback, just great. Now, he's 6'1", 205 pounds, out of Little Elm, Texas, and won the backup quarterback job from Garantano this fall, and went 3 of 2 for passing for 32 yards, including his first touchdown career pass. Way to go, John Mateer. A beautiful 27-yard pass to Orion Peters, who scored on his first touchdown. So, Mateer's got legs, right? Very impressive. He ran for 4 times, 58 yards, including that 37-yarder. And his mobility, impressive. Most of all camp, he was pretty impressed. But you know what? This was his starter, dual threat. Super to see John Mateer in and really play well instead of just mop up, right? So Schlenbaker, his debut, we waited a long time to see him. Now, Schlenbaker's from Bellingham, right? Squalican High School, and finally healthy enough, given the opportunity, that Schlenbaker ran for 50 yards on 4 carries, including a 34-yard run that showed just terrific speed and burst. I'm not so sure why we were putting Payne in there, except we probably burned his red shirt, right? So we're talking about Schlenbaker's red shirt got burned. That's probably why we were putting Payne in after Nakia and Jenkins went down. So, speaking about injury, Jarrett Kingston injury, very, very sad on Kingston. He had been a bright spot among our almost pathetic O-line, but he was our best out of our O-line. Stanford, tons of injuries, right? Just several on that first play of the game. Feel sorry for those guys. That first quarter was brutal for Stanford, very thin. And unfortunately, they've got a lot of injuries, and Stanford is just not a very good football team. Not at all. Feel sorry for the head coach. You just got to wonder, how long he's going to stick around. I mean, there's talk that he's going to be there forever. They love him, and Stanford's got a total different world, right? I mean, their academics are number one, right? They can't capitalize on the portal. You've got to have a very good GPA and a letter from the governor to get into Stanford. So they've got some challenges on portal transfers or incoming, right? So it is what it is. Super great university. They have an 89%. When you're a freshman, there's an 89% chance you're going to graduate. You're going to stay with for 4 years at Stanford. Okay, that's pretty awesome. Harvard's like 98% as a freshman that you're going to finish as a senior and graduate. Washington State is 59%. I think the UW is like 82%. So Stanford is a phenomenal school, right? No doubt. But their football program is in really dire straits right now, and it really is. What do you do? Do you bring in another coach? However, Stanford did beat Notre Dame, and Notre Dame just beat Clemson just on Saturday. Go figure that one out, right? That's what college football is about. Earlier on this year, Stanford beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame turns around last Saturday and beats Clemson, Clemson was undefeated, right? So all in all, we needed that game desperately down in Palo Alto. I mean, really bad. And I'm not just talking about a win, but we really, everything really worked. Everything was clicking, just everything. Defense, offense, takeaways, turnovers, playing our backups, our twos, right? A lot of guys, a lot of playing time with results in individual and team confidence. And that's the biggest thing, is the confidence building, the momentum coming into Arizona State game in Pullman on Pullberg on Saturday, right? Of course, we're facing a very much better team in Pullberg on Saturday ASU. I mean, they're not particularly a good team, but they're playing a lot better now since Herm Edwards got fired. And and the Sun Devils gave UCLA a lot that they can handle in the second half in the fourth quarter last Saturday. So, speaking about Arizona State, we're talking about the Sun Devils next, right here on the second half of the Podcast Coug.
Hey, Coug fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the PodcastCoug Radio Network. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at PodcastCoug.com.
The real estate agent you work with matters, and a great agent helps you own the home of your dreams. And your dreams come true with James Laurie at Coldwell Banker Bain, representing clients like you 24/7, from condos to colonials and everything in between. If you're selling, buying, need a price analysis, or just a contractor referral, ask James, winner of the 2015 through 2019 International Coldwell Banker Diamond Award, with dozens and dozens of 5-star Zillow reviews and Seattle Magazine's 5-star award winner for 2018 through 2020. James Laurie, Coldwell Banker Bain, at 425-466-3672 or jameslaurie.net. Rock solid results.
You're listening to the Podcast Coug.
Two running backs in with the quarterback. Signals called. All man in motion going through to the right side. Handoff leaves out to the right side. Touchdown, Washington State.
You are listening to the Podcast Coug.
Welcome back to the second half of the Podcast Coug. I am James Laurie, the Podcast Coug, where we're all things Cougar football, all things Cougs. Washington State is hosting the Sun Devils for family weekend, right? Used to be Dad's weekend. Now it's family weekend, right? Equal opportunity for mom and everybody else. Martin Stadium at 12:30 on Saturday, Pac-12 Networks. Temperatures, cloudy skies, sun breaks, 35 degrees in Pullman. Little chilly, right, in Pullman. For the guys in Maricopa County are coming up from Maricopa, right? Cougs are 8.5-point favorites coming from our boat race, our rout down at Stanford, 52-14, and we should be pretty fired up. And the good news is Dickert always has the team fired up, ready to play, unlike Mr. Mike Leach, right? Dickert always has the guys ready to go. 2/3 of God's name is go, and we're going, right? Last Saturday, the Sun Devils fell away way behind on the first half against UCLA, scored 26 points in the second half, but still got blown out 50-36 against UCLA in the Rose Bowl. They had a great second half. They can do it, too. Bruins had 402 yards, 5 touchdowns, 42 rushing attempts, and they went 9 of 11 on third down conversions. Arizona State quarterback Trenton Barquette completed 38 out of 49 for 350 yards. And as you know, Arizona State's being punished by that NCAA investigation for alleged recruiting violations during the COVID years under Herm Edwards, right? Under his watch. Although it took a while, right? It took a while. They fired him, Herm Edwards, after that upset loss to Eastern Michigan. That's what it took to do it. And running backs coach Sean Aguano is in for interim coach, right? So one would expect there'd be a plenty of lows, but it's been interesting for Arizona State, right? These past couple of months, right? Losing big to Utah, right? Losing big to USC, and then quarterback Trenton Barquette, they beat the Huskies in Tempe. Right? They beat the Huskies 45-38, and then they turned around and lost to Stanford and beat Colorado. So Arizona State, they're not bad, they're not the obviously, right, second bottom echelon of Pac-12, but they're better than Stanford. They're better than Colorado. They beat the Huskies, and they had a great second half against UCLA last Saturday. So Barquette has thrown for almost 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but he's throwing a 75% completion record this season. So the good quarterback. He's been sacked 3 times over 3 games. So they're playing hard under interim coach. Just like the Cougs had interim coach Dickert last year, they've got an interim coach this year, and they're playing better than they did for Herm. And so, the Sun Devils offense operates on a near 50-50 balance. They've got literally the best Pac-12 tailback, running back in the Pac-12, Xavier Valladay, right? He's by far the leader in FBS rushing yards at 4,000, over 4,000 in his career, 4,100, some change, right? Including 852 this year. Valladay leads the Pac-12 with 12 rushing touchdowns. Valladay, now he transferred to Arizona State, right? From the portal this past summer, spent 5 years as a Cowboy, right? Wyoming, right? Dickard knows him really well. Dickard, when he was there for 2-3 years in Wyoming, he's a stud. Dickard knows this. He calls him X, right? Valladay is the man and great tailback. But ASU ranks 8th in the conference in total scoring offense. And, they've scored 35-plus points in 3 of their past 4 games. But they're going to be up against the Cougs defense, which we lead the Pac-12 in points allowed at about 20 a game. So, nobody really steamrolls us, right? Our defense shows up. Now, Arizona State's defense isn't that great. They've struggled big time to generate a pass rush and to contain their running backs. But, we're probably going to take advantage of our run game with Nokia and Schlenbaker. But I'm convinced. I'm still convinced or concerned, I should say, about our O-line. I'm really concerned about our O-line. Who's going to protect Cameron Ward's blind side, right? With Kingston out, right? We might be in bad shape. It was very sad to get Kingston out injured last Saturday. Really, really sad. But who knows what our O-line's going to be, how this is going to affect. Last year, what happened? Well, we shot out a really strong, healthy lead in the first half and then just coasted the rest of the game. We finished 34-21 down in Tempe last year. The Cougs forced 5 turnovers during their first victory under Dickert. That was his first win for Jake, right? And then his second week as interim head coach. So, the series, Arizona State, they've got us on the series. 27 wins against us. We've got 15 wins, so 27-15 and 2 ties over all these years. When they joined the Pac-10 to make it 12. Obviously, actually no, that was the Pac-8. I'm thinking of Utah, Colorado. I'm sorry. Back in the day, it was the Pac-8 that Arizona State came on board and created the Pac-10, right? So 27 wins against us, and we've got 15 wins against them. So we've won the last 3 out of 4, right? Interesting, because of COVID and cancellations, the last 3 games have all been played in Tempe at Maricopa County. So Arizona State, they haven't made a trip to Pullman in 7 years, right? 7 years. 38-24 Coug victory win in 2015. So it's going to be 35 degrees in Pullman, cloudy and some sun breaks. A little chilly. Time to break out that warm Coug gear that's been in your closet. You're not a closet guy. You're not a closet Coug, right? You're showing up all the time, right? But it is time to break open the layer up. The heavy coats, right? Hey, that's it for episode 10 of our 7th season of the Podcast Coug. Thank you so much for listening. It's Arizona State at Wazoo. God bless and go Cougs.
You've been listening to the Podcast Coug with your host, James Laurie. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the Podcast Coug Radio Network. Find us at podcastcoug.com.
10.